I never thought I would say this, but Rebels is far better than Resistance. Now, this is continuing on in the sequel trilogy timeline. This Star Wars Resistance. Never seen it before. I mean, I knew it was on Disney XD, but I never ever tuned in when it was airing. I think it was around like 2018 when this came on TV. Uh, it definitely. There are some parts where I think the art looks really good, but other times I feel like it's like a total ripoff of the Tron uh, Legacy kind of cartoon they did after the sequel to Tron, because it seems like a very similar kind of art aesthetic, which gives me the impression that some of the artists behind both of those series worked on similar projects. So that's why, in my mind, it looks kind of similar. But uh, yeah, I mean, this show had its moments, but it's like towards like the latter half, like just like the last few. Well, not even the last. It's just like you know, you know, bits and pieces in the middle, and it definitely, picks up a tiny bit towards the end. But for the bulk of the season, man, I was just like feeling like I was going through a slog. Maybe because just like with Rebels, I feel like it was like, well, it's not feel like, it definitely was probably geared towards, a younger demographic. But technically, so was Clone Wars. Like I mentioned when I was reviewing all the Rebel stuff, which you can check out my thoughts on, each of the seasons of Rebels on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Links in the description. And you can hear my full reviews of each of those seasons. But just like with Rebels, my problem with that was just that even Clone Wars managed to, yeah, it's, I mean, like I think like a couple of times it was airing on, no, not Adult Swim. It was airing definitely on Toonami, so it was, right with like anime, and even during like the daily prime time hours on Cartoon Network, it was like for children, you know from like young kids to like people who might be in there like up to age 20, hell 21, whatever. It's not like you can't watch cartoons. It's like anybody can watch it if they feel inclined to. It's not really an issue. But it's just that's why I have my personal feelings towards like cartoons like of today's standards. It's like it's a cartoon, whatever like kind of animation style, 3D, 2D, whatever. You can't make it seem uh like you're jingling keys in front of a kid just to distract them. The cartoons that I grew up on wasn't just goofy fun. It also, either had a tinge of like adult humor or adult seriousness, uh, a mix with creativity. Uh, like, um, well, there's definitely Looney Tunes stuff back in the day with like definitely some kind of level of adult humor that might go over a kid's head. But Batman animated series, perfect example where you can have fun. It definitely was geared towards kids, but you can also watch. Adults can watch with their kids, and you feel engaged in the story. Same thing with like X-Men or Spider-Man or even the Teen Titans. Not Go, the regular Teen Titans. Not Titans on the HBO Max. I'm talking about the regular Teen Titans. from like the 2000s, where like you have like the Teen Titans TV show. I'll just use that as a baseline example here. Just like with Clone Wars, is obviously geared towards children, all demographics. However, you have like certain episodes where you have serious tones, or when you have like talking points in a kids show where it gets kids to think or like ask questions and like you learn something. Like I think it was in the first season, like one like episode 2 or 3, whichever one where it had like Cyborg dealing with this other guy underground who's basically making like Cyborg appreciate the fact that like he's more than just a machine. He's a human being too, despite his robotic parts. It's just like things like that. You and they got like Raven dealing with like her anger and like her demonic side because of her father. It's like, and then of course you have goofy episodes like episodes when they try to stop Control Freak. It's just it's like it should be like that. It wasn't just like Teen Titans Go is another example of the other spectrum of things where it's just goofy potty humor for the sake of goofy potty humor to distract your kids. And personally, I just cannot get with that. Now that I'm guessing I'm not telling kids or parents to show whatever to whatever to their kids, but it's just that personally I feel like those kind of shows, that Teen Titans Go aesthetic makes children dumber, not smarter, or appreciate any kind of nuance. I understand like they're children, not gonna whatever, but just like it's not like we didn't have like my generation didn't have like a fair amount of like that kind of goofiness, but it's just like I don't know. I think like growing up in the 90s, there was like a renaissance of like a bursting of creativity. You get like Dexter's Lab, Ed, Ed and Eddy, SpongeBob, Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold is like another brilliant example of not just a cartoon. You got like Hey Arnold, who a kid growing up with his grandparents who for the longest time never knew what happened to his parents who went on this archaeological adventure, never returned, and for the longest time we never knew what happened until like the movie years later. But you got like Arnold, like I remember this great episode with Christmas episode where Arnold and his grandparents like running like a duplex or something like that with a bunch of other tenants, and like one of the tenants is like named Mr. Wynn, a Filipino man, or no, Vietnamese man who during like the Vietnam era had to give up his only daughter to American soldiers to give her a chance at a better life, while he's trying to figure out a way to make it to the States, and he'd never seen her in such a long time until Arnold eventually tracked her down and reunited the two. And you have moments like that, because to this day, I kid you not, it will make anybody cry. It was such a well done episode. But then you also get like goofy moments like Helga bashing like that nerd's face, and every time he's just breathing heavily next to her, Pink, and it still cracks me up. So you can have both, but it's like that constant potty humor is just like make your kids dumb. But that's how I feel like Resistance is not on the same level as Teen Titans Go, but it's like only a notch or two above that, but still in that vein. Where it's like you got this main character named Kaz, who seems like all the Three Stooges roll into one. Where it seems like it's hard for me to take this guy seriously because he wants to be a pilot and he wants to be a spy for the Resistance, but it's like he does goofy crap, and he doesn't seem like he got like two neurons to rub together in his brain. And then you got this other guy, this alien named Nico, who seems like the Dave Bautista's character in Guardians, Drax. It seems like he's supposed to be like the Drax of the group, but more like goofy and constantly happy, but with the taking everything too literal kind of thing like Drax does. But unlike Drax, who can make it funny, he's so annoying with it. And it's like, it's bizarre. Who is writing for this guy? And I'm not gonna blame like the voice actors on this. They're just doing a job and whatever's asked of them. But it is just nauseating. And you got like this other mechanic that Kaz is working with, named Tam, and excuse me, and the guy is in charge of all of them, named Jaeger, who just sounds like a Pacific Rim character, who's all working together on this Colossus, pretty much this like big port station thing. Now at the beginning of the show, Kaz is flying, is a pilot, and he's flying with some people escaping like first order soldier in a TIE fighter, and he runs into Poe Dameron, played by Oscar Isaac, who's always awesome. But it's like, I want to mention this right out the gate. Now this is like for the up until like episode 17, it's like leading towards like the events of The Force Awakens, and so you get to see like it's kind of like a prequel, essentially, or like the precursor or whatever, like whatever, the prelude in like a book series for like The Force Awakens. And Poe, we never seen those friends of Kaz again. They seem like they were like a big deal, but they hightail out of there while Kaz stays to hold off the TIE fighter. But the First Order is like, how did they're glorified Nazis? It's no different. They're still the Empire by all intents and purposes. They just renamed themselves. But y'all literally went through a couple of decades of Empire rule, knowing the bulk of y'all know. I know there's things like propaganda and all the other crap, and involved with like inserting themselves in like society secretly and amassing followings or what have you. But by and large, y'all had a couple of decades knowing these kind of guys were constantly restricting people, from telling people where to go, what to do, curfews, anything you speak up against, they take you away, never to be seen again, or often just shoot you right then and there on the spot, and massacre, thousands of civilizations, blowing up planets just outright. Y'all, of course, there's some time went by since the events of Return of the Jedi. But it's like, do y'all got like short-term memory? Nobody keeps record logs of historical events, because by and large, the rule of the Empire will be in your historical text or something, detailing all the awfulness of and atrocities they did why would you allow, like, just because they call themselves something different, you already know they got the same dang on stormtrooper suits. It's like, and they doing like some Hitler salute and stuff like that because they glorify freaking Nazis. But it's like, they're not like, they're Nazi-esque because, like, they just more so the bullies in suits. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, Nazis. But it's like, how do you let this get this far? To know, like, it's like I said, I know it's some insidious stuff in order to get them, like, a certain amount of power. Even when I did my review of Mandalorian season 1, I mentioned about the sporadic remnants of the Empire scattered in the winds and stuff like that. So they had time to, like, what little was left of them had time to reshape themselves, behind the scenes. But it's like, anybody who's onlooking or having to pawn them or whatever the case may be should not even, come across like this, because now they're like got a massive army, as you can see in The Force Awakens. It's like, how do you let this get this far? It's crazy to me. But anyway, Poe brings Kaz along into the Resistance, despite, like, his faceless father obviously disapproving and whatever. You never see the father again, because that could have been something there where, like, his father, who's like seemingly given everything Kaz ever wanted, because he's come from a rich family, but he loves being a pilot, so everything has been handed to him for the most part. But he wants something from himself, but his father gave him the riot act. But you never get that turned around. It seems like an important thing to, like, resolve, and like in like a decent narrative, you'll have, like, at least see, that's why I like Clone Wars, where at least you have these, like, short arcs in each of these seasons, like 2 or 3 arcs in each season to hash these kind of things out. And I think it's such a brilliant design of storytelling by Clone Wars, to where, like, if you have like a Star Wars TV show, aside from like The Mandalorian, who's doing just fine because it's got shorter of seasons, but if it's like a long, like, season, like 13 episodes or 12 episodes, I think a good idea to have, just like with, like, Rebels, to have, like, arcs, and not any side quest goofy BS that leads into nowhere. And Resistance, just like any other lame cartoon show. Well, I won't go as far as calling it lame, but it's like, it's episodic, but like the overarching narrative is the important thing. And I think it could have easily benefited to, like, condensing it to the more critical episodes, rather than, getting like an episode, dealing with, like, whatever cartoonist BS that doesn't have nothing to do with the overall story, or at least informing the, not only not informing the plot, but not informing the characters and making them, like, better in any kind of way. It seems this redundant kind of show, like any other cartoon show. But Poe brings, Kaz along, meets Princess Leia, not voiced by Carrie Fisher like I thought it was, but it was a good impressionist. So Poe, like, recruits Kaz into the Resistance, but he had, like, a secret mission especially for him, where they take him to this planet, meet, like, Yeager, who's like the only person that Poe trusts, and he's recruiting Kaz to be undercover as a quote unquote mechanic, with only Yeager truly knowing what's going on. and leaving like the rest of the crew out because you don't know who they can trust and blah blah blah. So Cass needs to be here to gain intel to find out anybody here who's might be working with the First Order or associated or trying to find intel to report back to the Resistance. Now this should be like the bulk of it, but you get like sideline about like some rival that try to pretend to be best friends with Cass, but it's total douche. Never seen that really turn around or come back around in this season, maybe in season 2. But that ultimately went nowhere. Like I said, the other side characters are kind of annoying. Funny thing is, I think out of all this, like the main cast, I think Yeager, I find pleasant. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, no, there's like the commander of this entire station, what's his name? Commander, Captain Doza. His daughter, I like a lot. What's her name? Crap. What is it? Tora. Yeager and Tora was like the two new people out of this show, or at least new to the Star Wars franchise that I liked here. But anybody else that I actually like beyond these two, it's just people from like the main Star Wars movies, like Poe and Leia, who probably had only had that one scene. But you also get to see Captain Phasma here, and this is where it comes to where I mentioned about like the art, where I liked it sometimes. There's a episode where Poe and Kaz are like investigating this mining facility, and like you see like the reflection on Phasma's suit, 'cause it's like so shiny. You actually see the reflection of her hand movements on her armor, and I thought that attention to detail was very impressive. I really like that, bit of attention to detail. That's when like I mentioned about like the moments like that with the art really shines for me. But but other times it's like, it's like I can't say I hate it. It's not like the worst art I've ever seen in my life, but it's not for me. But yeah, and you get to see like a little bit after a little bit of Cass's whenever they get into the spy stuff. You find out that Captain Doza's kind of like dealing with all these pirates, and obviously like they keep trying to like rob the station. Obviously, the First Order tried to get them. It's kind of like very mobsterish, where it's like you get some crooks to try to cause havoc on an establishment, and you come swooping in, try to be the savior, so they'll owe you, kind of thing. Now, the Order is pretty much like running things on the station, pretty much restricting every which way with everyone, and spreading all this propaganda stuff, and try to get more recruits and stuff like that. But you come to understanding, okay, they're building something, and like there's like like a sun missing where it's supposed to be, surrounded by all these other planets, in this particular sector that's decimated, not fully obliterated, but they're like partial chunks of planetoids. It's like that should be whole planets, but they're completely like void of life, and they're pretty much hollowed out or just partially cracked open. And uh, getting towards the end, the camaraderie Kaz built over time is fractured with one person, with Tam, who is, I don't want to say is like a gullible idiot, but she played like she's like the smart one of the group, only second to Yeager himself. But she totally buys in this whole Force Order crap. Well, not their like evil stuff, but it's just like, oh, they bring in order and stability, and we should just let them do their job and that kind of thing. She doesn't see like how much of our dipshits they are, but then she having this conflicting emotions about like because everything comes to head when she feels like Yeager and Kaz been lying to her, and it's like she doesn't understand like I trusted them. Like, why would you do it? It's played so much better in other stuff. This one, you make this character seem like she's such like a good head on her shoulders. She's reasonable and stuff like that. But then you let her fall for this crap? Or at least, I would have respected better when they had a chance to run together. She runs along with them and like, having like a shouting match with Kaz and Yeager for line term, but understand like the order has to be stopped because what they're doing is, wrong. They, crossing lines, but it's just like, man, and she like, how could everybody? It's just like, how could they do that to me? How? It's like, I trusted them. How could you? I was like, God, open your eyes, woman. But it's just like this. The show is, like I said, it gets a little bit better because it leads in right into Force Awakens. But you get a time with BB-8, another character that I really like, from the main movie cast. That for the bulk of the season been working with Kaz, keeping an eye on things for Poe, while he uses this other BB-8 unit to go on these missions and like all this other stuff. But then you can tell that by the time it leads into where Poe ends up at the beginning of The Force Awakens, he had to get BB-8 back, which it's like could just kept BB-8 in the first doggone place and give him a different BB-8 unit rather than like having him form this attachment to a BB-8 unit he's not going to end up keeping it in the long run. He's not going to be part of like the main cast for long. So that was kind of pointless. But yeah, like honestly, it's like as much as I crap on like Rebels, I still find at least a little bit something to gain from it, even when moments when they're bringing up stuff from like Clone Wars era that's like feeding into like the main narrative that leads into the original trilogy. And now I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like it's a neat idea to have like TV shows that lead into the main trilogies. Like you got like Clone Wars leading into like at least a part of technically of the prequel trilogy, but leads into Revenge of the Sith, while Rebels leads into Hope, a New Hope, and Resistance leads right into Force Awakens. But Resistance is very low tier. Like I could not stand listening to at least most of the cast members, man. It's like I said, it's probably built for kids, like little kids, but it's like this goofiness, especially Kaz. Kaz was the worst. It's like, what is this goofy Three Stooges bullshit he's doing when he's fumbling over himself? God. But that is my thoughts on Resistance. I'm not a fan, and like I'm dreading watching season 2, but like I want to stick to the timeline, order. So I want to get into the next video, which is the Force Awakens spoiler review. Then by next week, I'll have Resistance season 2 up, and then as well as The Last Jedi. But I might squeeze in Rise of Skywalker just to wrap it all up at once. Hopefully, I can get it all done in a single day. But here's for hoping. But because it's pretty soon. Like by the end of next week, or no, by the end of next week, we'll be starting into like Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So I'm not going to do a review for each episode of that. I'm going to wait until the whole entire season is complete. Then I'll give my full spoiler reviews of the entire season of Kenobi once that is done. Because I think it's only 6 episodes. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit as I go over Star Wars: A Force Awakens. So, see you in a minute.